actually read from the work around resentment. So there's some really personal things in here, but I think this kind of tea is why I do this show. This is why I do this show. Okay, so this is January 1st, 2013. I almost wrote last night. I had words as usual. You know how I love to talk. I was loving to talk even back then, but I would talk to my journal. It was about 4 hours to midnight, and I laid in bed with headache and with a heavy heart. How my heart tires from heaviness. I was eager to make an early entry. Filled with memories of Christmas and New Year's past, I could feel the words coursing through my fingers, begging for pen and paper. This year will be different. I guess as all the others have been. My life is so glamorous and far from it, filled with ups and downs, worse than a roller coaster. My problems are big ones, touching all of the critical life points: health, love, children, family, career. The rides in my amusement park get steeper and longer as age graces my soul. I remembered a quote this past week as I provoked myself out of a low place. Watch your thoughts because they become words. Watch your words because they become actions. Watch your actions because they become your character. I thought of the legacy I want to leave behind, the mark, the imprint I want to leave on people's hearts. How much more thinking of myself in a positive way I have to do. The first thoughts that come present to me were those mantras I created while home, recovering and reading the book on sacred tantra. I have enough. I do enough. I am enough. I am lovable. I will have a great love. I am lovable. I will have many great loves. Even now, as I write the words, I smile deep down from a place of knowing. I am ready to escape this dungeon, the dungeon of my transformation. It is dark in here, and the others around me are lost in their search for enlightenment. Being confined in this space has pressed me so. I am ready to break free of the coal that surrounds my gems, the ones I have been given to share with the world. Wow, a quiet moment is fleeting. My girls are always looking for me. They are needy at this time and yet have grown so independent from my treatment. I don't know that I'm a good mother. I try my best, but feel so much like a failure when I get upset or react in a human way. Nothing, of course, surpasses the guilt I have struggled with since leaving their father, but I will grow past that too. My son poured his heart out to me last night. We cried together and I comforted him. He told me that everything is wrong, and we dug into his world of everything. I felt responsible for not being better at creating a different expression of life for him. He mourned having to move again. His lament then broke into feeling tired of having to start over. I felt him. I promised him we would not move again while he was in my care. I cannot or could not say forever. I was only able to commit to the next few years while he did high school. Once we move to Jamaica, we're going to put down some roots. This nomadic spirit seems unquenchable, or maybe she seeks something that does not exist in this realm, this life. She seeks freedom, a life so fully expressed, it's scary. She is a part of me, but not the totality of who I am. Anyway, it goes on to talk about the guy that I was seeing and how I tried to break up with him and all this other stuff. But anyway, I thought that was good enough. So, guys, this is the result of hidden resentment. That's what this is. Okay? This is the result of hidden resentment. And I say it's the result of it because it is where I don't know that at that time in my life I had identified. I mean, this is January 1st, 2013, right? And I start off by saying such melancholy deserves a pen. Clearly, I was in a dark place. I mean, I talked about feeling like I was in a dungeon. I talked about having that level of sadness that is like you're on this roller coaster ride and it's the worst ride of your life. I don't know that I was clear on how resentment was actually shaping the experience that I was having, and not just the experience that I was having, right? But the experience that I was creating for my children. And I don't know if, for those of you that follow me that have kids and whatever, I know that that's something that you oftentimes may be challenged with. Sometimes you may be challenged with this thinking about, whether your actions and the way that you are living your life is impacting your kids, and you feel a lot of guilt and you feel a lot of blame and sometimes a lot of shame. And what is true is that we all are on this journey to grow, to expand, to step into the more powerful versions of ourselves. And in order for us to grow and to stretch and to become that, there are things that we're going to have to do that are going to challenge us. And sometimes we have some little ones that are going through the challenge with us. And it's just a life state. So the first thing I would say to you before I really get into how to identify hidden traces of resentment, I would say to you, just offer yourself first some forgiveness. Find a way to face the feelings. My journaling was one of the ways that I was facing those feelings. And I keep my old journals. I mean, look at that crack up. Look at crack up. I keep my old journals so that I can see my growth. I mean, this is me at the beginning of 2013. There was no, I'm sure YouTube existed, but I was not on it. Okay. This was pre-Instagram, pre-TikTok, pre-Snapchat, all of them, right? And I was thinking honestly about, well, how can I use this pain and these scars and this hurt to actually impact others? And here we are, fast forward 12 years later, and we're having this conversation on Tea Time. Like, this is the entire reason for this show, guys. Because I really believe that we are more alike than we are different. Okay, oh gosh, that must have come from Kamala at the thing there, the debate. But it's true. It's true. We are actually more alike than we are different. And if we are able to see each other through that lens of you are human, oh my gosh, there is so much resentment that we can let go by just recognizing that the guy that break your heart, or the girl that pissed you off yesterday, or even the taxi man that cut into you in traffic. I'm always talking about taxi man. Even the taxi man that cut you off in traffic. Like, we are all human on some level. We are all just being the best that we can be. And so it does not serve me to hold on to any kind of negative energy that may be evoked through my relationship with you. I may feel and be triggered in that moment because the essence of my values and the essence of your values may not be lining up. But my God, this was 12 years ago. And I can tell you that the things that I was reading to you about the pain that I was feeling was from resentment that I had held on to probably 10 years before that. I don't know if you guys are getting this, but everybody's tea, also known as what people would consider the drama in your life, right? But everybody's tea is ultimately the growth spot, the growth moments, those magical levers that you can actually use to propel yourself to the next level. And no matter how much you would think that you cut off people, I had to cut off my breast to cut off people. Like, it's that deep. No matter how much you cut off parts of your body and people and things out of your life, and you feel like, say, because you have done a physical removal, you have also done a spiritual, a mental, and emotional removal. It's not necessarily true. And it is actually one of the things that they have studied scientifically, that resentment that's what creates tumors in your body. That's what creates growths. Right? And so you may be having this experience of some kind of ailment in your body, You don't know that that's what it is related to. It may be related to something, an experience from your past. It could be an old girlfriend, an old boyfriend, a bad relationship with a coworker, a boss, something from your toxic teenage past. There's just so many different ways that relationships that go south or sour, whether or not you actually acknowledge that they're going south or sour, right? It don't have to end in a big blow up and a fight and a divorce or whatever, like, mine did. Don't have to end in big drama. It could be that you actually have resentment for the person leaving you. And the breakup may have seemed friendly and nice, but ultimately you were so heartbroken or so upset who them think them is that you have now held on to that in there somewhere deep, deep down behind. It's still festering, waiting to show itself. And it usually shows up when you're in the relationship with a new person where you just love head over heels and you think, oh my God, it's going to be wonderful. And then 3 years later, you find yourself constantly abusing them with your words or telling them about themselves, how they're not good enough for you and how they're not this and they're not that, when ultimately that's about you, right? So you got to be careful of thinking how, you are holding on to things and holding on to people and holding on to pain, because it does not serve you. Hi guys. Hi Shawnee. Hi Keisha. All right. So first, let's get clear on what resentment is. That bitterness. Don't have to be bitterness. If you don't feel bitter, you're like, I'm not bitter, Stacy. Okay. That frustration, that fatigue. That fatigue. Oh, I'm just tired. Okay. I mean, when you think back to my journal, right? And I literally said, how my heart tires from heaviness. Now, I know some of y'all can get that. You're just tired. You're tired of the heavy heart, right? So resentment can be bitterness. It can be frustration. It can be fatigue, right? When you think that you've been wrong, it can come from being hurt or betrayed or even unappreciated. Just somebody not appreciating you can actually create resentment, right? And what is tricky about resentment is that it builds up slowly sometimes. And so it's not necessarily like this big bang moment. You see, when you have these big bang outbursts, that's usually after the resentment's built up over time. It's not because it just don't start build up. It's over time, right? You've been feeling the little rub every little now and again. You're with this person and they say something and it just rub you a little way. You feel a little rub on the inside and you brush it off. And you find out 5 years of brushing, you blow up. And they're looking at you like you're crazy because you've just been going along all nicey, just going along. And then boom. That's because resentment usually builds up slowly, right? And because of that slow buildup, when you don't deal with the feelings, it takes root and it spreads, just like cancer. I am pretty clear that my breast cancer was rooted heavily in resentment, right? So it's literally like you are carrying around this backpack full of bricks. So it's like every single time that you feel slighted or you feel hurt, and it doesn't have to be from the same person, right? But you start to load on the backpack, and then it's not even the full brick the first time. It's like the little parts of the brick that are being built up together over time, and eventually it wears you down both emotionally and physically, right? So we've talked about the ways that relationships can romantic relationships can be a festering ground for resentment. We've talked about another area where resentment, like at work or even in friendships. A lot of times you'll be in friendships, and especially when you're in like a friend group, and there may be somebody in the group that rubs you. And just every time they say like a thing, they rub you, right? I was watching a show last night, with my love partner. It's a Netflix series. Oh my gosh, what's the name of it? I was just watching it last night. Anyway, so watching this Netflix series, and literally the woman in the series played by Nicole Kidman. Oh, the perfect couple. So we're watching the perfect couple, and from the show start till the episode I stopped watching, I think we're at episode 4 last night. Yes, I did stay up and get sucked into this onion series. It's literally like shade, shade, shade. She was just like dishing out the shade, you know, like somebody would say, yeah, I really like this new wardrobe that I got. And she'd be like, yeah, you probably should rethink that wardrobe. It was like every little thing was a little bit of shade. And when you're in those circumstances and you hear people throwing shade, it's landing on somebody, it's not just going out into the nothingness. Shade lands, right? Whether it's the commentary you're hearing about celebrities or whatever, shade is landing. So you could literally, as I'm watching the show, I just kept saying, oh my gosh, she's just like a master shade thrower. Yeah. So when you have those people in your friend group that are always making those little snide comments, little one-off comments, throwing shade, we call it, right? Those types of comments, when they land and they land on you, that's where you start to feel that resentment build up. And then, like 1 year later, after hanging around this person in your group, right? It's like, I don't really like them. Or why I feel so bad when I come in, or you find yourself calling the other friend ahead and be like, yo, Jerry come in, because if Jerry come in, I'm gonna take my one roll. Because literally, because you are so like not interested. And it's like if you're at work and you know that co-worker that come to the meeting and then forever have something for complain about, and that's something that them complaining about is always related to you. Oh, you can best believe you're starting to develop resentment about that person. Right? So these are the ways that resentment can build up and creep in and you don't even know it. All right. So there's another way also that resentment can creep up, and it's in the family situation. Now, from you are here on this earth, you have a family. Whether you want to acknowledge them as family or not, that's not my business. But you have family, and family dynamics are complex, right? You know that. You have family, all of us have the WhatsApp family groups. And some people come into the group and then them get vexed and then leave the group, and we all have that. We all have the family dynamics, right? And who them feel is the black sheep and who don't do enough. I think in my family, I'm the one that is definitely nomadic and that is always on our own journey. um I think even my aunt and my paternal aunt, um her husband described me once as, yeah man, Stacey, everybody know that Stacey always doing her own thing, which translated could mean, yeah man, Stacey in a business with nobody, she could just make sure that she taken care of. Which, to be quite honest, guys, I will honestly say to you that that's probably exactly how I am. It is me first, but it's different. It was me first, long time, in a way that was probably naive at first, and then it became a bit more like a survival me first, and then it moved from naive to survival to, oh, I'm out here just exploring and I don't business about nobody else, to now it's me first, because I understand that I have to pour into me before I can pour into others. So it's evolved, but ultimately, he may have been saying I was selfish, but we're just gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. All right. So family relationships, another place where you can develop resentment. I think when I was growing up, and I use this story all the time, that I went to visit with my uncles, and I think whether it was one of the uncles or somebody there told me that I was ugly. I think I may have been like 5 or 6. And I swear to you that that stayed with me until I was maybe 10 years ago or so. I don't know. I was in my 30s. I just never thought of myself as a beautiful woman outside, you know? I just never thought of mine. No matter what people would tell me, no matter what men would tell me, I think that just stuck with me. And I think there was some level of resentment from that early age because I was so hurt by that. Okay. And, I think what ultimately happens when you have those family dynamics and you have a family situation where you have resentment towards one or more or many family members, especially if they call you the black sheep, it can lead to you avoiding like family gatherings, feeling disconnected, not wanting to, be in close proximity or in close space with your family. When Christmas time I come, you're like dreading getting the invite to Christmas dinner, but you have to go because it's your grandmother and you want to be there. You want to see grandma, and grandma's going to be hurt if you don't go. But you don't really want to be there because you don't get along with your mother, or say somebody going to be fighting with somebody else, and that's what happens with the resentment in the family sense. Okay, so there's lots of different relationships that you're going to be in over time. Lots of different relationships that you are going to feel moments of hurt or unappreciation. And it's not all of them that you can just walk away from. Like some love relationships, people feel stuck in the love relationships. They can't walk away from them. In others, like the family relationships, it's like it's your family. You don't feel like you can divorce your family. Sometimes even when you divorce from a family, you're not really wanting to divorce from other family members. So there's lots of different relationship dynamics that make resentment hard to pick up all the time, right? Especially when it's something that is more than one person, and you want to hold on to some aspects of it, but then other aspects you want to let go. So what's important is not so much feeling trapped and like, oh my God, woe is me, I can't do nothing about this situation. It's more important to actually be able to identify that hidden resentment, so that you can understand whether you are carrying or not. So it's that recognition piece. It's really recognizing, am I carrying hidden resentment? Because if it is hidden, then it's very difficult for you to root it out. But if it is not hidden and you can recognize it, then you can start to work towards rooting it out and repairing those wounds that you may have, right? So let's talk about looking for the clues. Here are some ways that you can look for clues of hidden resentment existing in your life experience. First clue: do you feel irritated with someone for no obvious reason? The person just irritates you. The person just irritates you. Them walk into a room and you feel irritated. Them enter the chat and you feel irritated, right? So just start looking for that clue. Do you feel irritated with someone for no obvious reason? That's clue seeking number one. Clue seeking number two: do you get passive aggressive or avoid certain people? Do you get passive aggressive or avoid certain people? I mean, or when you think about maybe a love relationship, when you can think about, like if it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, or your spouse, do you find yourself trying to go to sleep before them come home, or maybe them reach home and you literally jump in the bed to go to sleep? Right? Do you find, and it may not be happening all the time, it may be like, you're in this kind of space with them at the moment. I just don't want to see them. I just can't right now. And so, they come home and they check, are you sleeping? And you draw a snore because you just don't want to engage, right? This is another way. That's a clue to there's some hidden resentment going on. Sometimes resentment can also show up as like tension or pain that you can't quite explain. You're getting these headaches that maybe you're somebody that normally gets headaches, and now you're just getting headaches more frequently than you used to. Okay, so the question that you want to ask yourself: is there someone in my life that I have a hard time being around even if I can't put my finger on why. Ask yourself that question. Is there someone in my life that I have a hard time being around? Is there? Is another way you can ask it about someone specific, am I having a hard time being around Jerry right now? Just sit in awareness and notice what comes up for you. If you start to feel that kind of gut feeling like, ooh, that don't feel so good, or heart, I usually feel it either heart or gut is where I usually get what I call the sensation of hidden resentment, right? So this is the way that you are going to first recognize where resentment may exist or who resentment may exist for. And when you recognize it, just acknowledge that it's there. You may not be able to pinpoint when it started, but as long as you can have that curiosity about whether or not there's a sensation and why there's this sensation, just be curious about it. Don't start judging and don't start trying to, become Matlock and Google it out and try to, dig into it, because we don't want to get into this space where you're focusing too heavily on it, because that now makes it become a focus point. And remember that what you focus on expands. So we're really just playing with curiosity here, guys. Once you have that recognition and once you're being curious about it, the next thing to do is to journal. See, we started this tea time with my journal from 12 years ago. And it really helped me to look back and see where I was feeling like I was in a dungeon. I literally wrote, I am ready to escape this dungeon, the dungeon of my transformation. Now, thankfully, I was able to recognize that this is clearly a place that I was in for transformation. I wasn't just going to be in there forever, right? I said, it is dark in here, and the others around me are lost in their search for enlightenment. Being confined in this space has pressed me so. This is so good. Oh my gosh. Like literally, what it means is that I was recognizing where I was. So clearly, I was being curious. I recognized where I was. I also recognized that the people that I was surrounded with were also lost. I'm not surrounded by people who can help me towards my enlightenment, save and except that they were pointing me to the fact that we're all in this dungeon and we're all lost. We're all in this dark place because I can't look to you for light. I can't look to you for light. I can't look to you for light. So what that had me doing was looking within for light. And that's really where you got to start. You can't look to other people to bring light to your world, as Instagram gives me fireworks, extra light. All right. So you acknowledge, you do that recognition of resentment. You acknowledge where there may be, a source for it happening. And you take some time and you journal, guys. You just journal it out, play with that curiosity. I think that journaling for me was one of my ways to let go of things and not just think I'm lobbing it off and pushing it down. There's a lot of pushing down of resentment. And when you're pushing down of resentment or pushing down of micro energetic bypasses, like when you have these moments of these ill feelings, when you're pushing them down and you're saying, oh, I can't bother with that person there, I'm just letting them go. You're not really letting them go. You're suppressing the feeling or the feelings because you're not facing what is actually in the space. So journaling used to help me, still does, helps me to face the feeling, and it will help you as well to just come to terms with what it is. So you're first curious, then you're journaling about that curiosity, right? You might even write very plainly, like how I was writing about the people in my life at that moment, that they are so lost in their search for enlightenment that I can't get no help from them. You may write, I resent this person. You may not even use the word resentment if you're not sure if that's what it is. You can say, I really felt badly that my friend wasn't there when I needed them. Just write it down, face it. Don't try to chop it off and act like it doesn't exist. You could even say, I felt bitter when my loved one did not say these words or do this thing or finish this thing I asked them to do for me. I felt bitter about how my family treated me when I was growing up. I feel bitter every time somebody calls me the black sheep. I really don't love that. As you know, naming the feeling is so powerful. It takes away the power from the darkness of it by naming it. Right? So you recognize, and then once you're done with that recognition exercise, then the journaling and the curiosity, asking yourself the questions, then it's now time to start to reframe your perspective. Try to understand where that other person is sitting, because hurt people hurt people. I'm sure you've heard that before. Hurt people hurt people. So again, on this show, we talk about expectations. Last week, the whole conversation on TTM was about expectations and how we put our expectations of others on them. And then when they don't meet them, when they don't meet those expectations, we feel hurt and we get resentful. So you have to reframe that perspective, recognize that this is just where that person is. Why might they have acted the way they did? Because that's the best that they can do. That's where they are. And then some people might say, but no, man, them can do better than that. If they could, they would. Know better, do better. Just because, I know it intellectually does not mean that the being that I am is prepared to show up like that. And we get stuck in the perspective of the expectation, and then resentment takes a hold of us. So we have to reframe that perspective and use a bit of empathy. Now, empathy may be hard to reach for if you are in the moment when that person has hurt you. So I'm not suggesting that if you're in the middle of a trigger, with a loved one, when them just throw some fresh shade pan you decide you're going to chop down the shade tree. I'm not suggesting that in that exact moment that you're going to dig for empathy. No, I'm talking about when you are off to yourself and you're being curious. You're asking the question, why is it that this person makes me feel this way? You're asking the question of, what exactly is it that this person does that has me react this way? Why could that be happening? I'm talking about when, it's past and you're more reflective and you're journaling and you're doing that. That's when you can now start to reframe your perspective and to put on that empathetic view. And once you're able to put on that view of empathy for that person that may have inflicted hurt, unappreciation, or frustration or fatigue in your direction, then you can also now start moving towards the thinking about how am I going to shift? And shifting is really about release. So first you get to the root, right? You get to the root of the problem by recognizing where you may be having these feelings. Asking yourself the question about the feeling that you're having about a particular person. So you're going to do that recognition part. Get curious. Start asking yourself, journaling, doing that. Okay. Then you are going to start to reframe that perspective. Start to recognize where they may be. So you're going to be reframing how you think about the person. Start to look at where they may be sat in life and maybe able to reach for some compassion or some empathy. And after you've done that reframing, the next thing now is releasing. And journaling was a great way for me to release. I also have a practice of completion where I will write the person a letter, and then I will burn the letter or I will tear it up and throw it in the garbage. Because, some people may feel like you need to go and talk to the person and hash it out. But at the end of the day, for me, the first person I have to talk to about anybody that I'm harboring resentment for is myself. That's the first person I have to talk to. The first person I have to talk to about any level of fear, frustration, fatigue, you know, any of those things that I'm dealing with, hurt, pain, bitterness, the first person I'm talking to is myself. Because if I don't deal with the negative impact that it is having on me and deal with that energetic existence in myself, when I go to talk to that person, all I'm bringing is that resentment energy. So it's just bitter meets bitter. It is not going to help either of us. So I have to go through a process of release, and it don't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes years, and that's okay. I mean, guys, this journal was what, I told you 2013, January 1st, 2013 is the first entry. And it's now September 2024. And it has taken me time to work through the depths of resentment that I may have had for different persons that were operating in my life at that point in time. And so give yourself some grace with your release process. It does not have to be overnight. And it also does not mean that you have to release the people from your life for good. You can release them for a moment. And if you so desire, when you have created space for an experience with that person again, then you can welcome them back in. A lot of love relationships do that. A lot of love relationships go through a process of that let go and then rekindling. That's why they call it and that's why they have the statement in Jamaica. My grandmother said, old fire would catch easier, old fire stick catch quicker. Oh my God, I have to get my phrases right, guys. Anyway, so that's my time today, guys. Today we talked about the hidden ways that resentment could be ruining your life. We talked about understanding resentment first, so you work really clear on what resentment is, and that resentment is really bitterness or frustration or fatigue, right? That has really just rooted itself in your beingness. So you have to understand what resentment is first, and then recognize that that's why it can be tricky. Once you recognize what resentment is, and recognize that it's not something that happens overnight, it's over time, seeds that are planted, and that they take that the fertilizer is when somebody throws shade, or when somebody says something or does something that hurts you in the same way. It doesn't even have to be the same person. Okay? So you're feeling these things over and over again, and it piles up over time. So understanding that is what resentment is, and in many ways it's hidden because it's something that happens over time, could be happening because of different people in your life, and is therefore growing in the darkness inside of your being. Ways that it can show up in romantic relationships, it can show up in family relationships, it can show up in friendships, especially when you're in a group of friends. It can show up in work relationships, right? Those toxic people at work. So now that you know what it is, the way to root it out is first to get to the root. So recognizing it, recognizing where you may have resentment. And that recognition comes through curiosity, comes through being curious, asking yourself the question, is there someone in my life that I have a hard time being around? Or why do I have such a hard time being around this person right now? Or why is it taking me so long to move past this feeling I have about my loved one? Why is it so hard for me to move past this feeling? I can't shake it. So you get curious and really try to recognize what exactly is creating that feeling, and sit down, and I encourage you to journal about it so that you're not festering the feeling. You are really just leaning into curiosity. Journal about it, let it go. And then once you've done that, you want to step back and reframe your perspective about the person, recognizing that they are behaving they're doing the best that they can do from where they are, and possibly accessing compassion or empathy for that person in that moment. And then the last thing, which is where the card for today comes from, today's card is I surrender. the last thing that you're doing is you are releasing the resentment. And you're releasing the resentment for yourself, not for the other person. No, you're releasing the resentment to serve the healing that needs to take place in yourself. So the card says, I surrender. And the affirmation says, I trust the universe fully and completely with all areas of my life. Let go, let God. Okay? I trust the universe with all areas of my life, fully and completely. Let go, let God. So as you go into your weekend, your Saturday, I encourage you to get curious where you may have that resentment feeling. And I invite you into the space of curiosity, into the space of journaling. So you got the full tea on my life, guys. Oh my gosh. And just lean into the freedom, because there is freedom that is on the other side of this release. So thank you so much for joining Tea Time, guys. I hope that today's conversation blessed you. Please follow me if you don't yet subscribe to my YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube, follow to my Instagram. And I'm also now on TikTok, where I put up the shorts for these episodes. So thanks for joining, guys. I love my Tea Time community. I have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you week after next on Tea Time. Next weekend is my birthday weekend, so I will not be having tea time, but I'll put out some reminders so that you guys know. All right. Take care, guys. Enjoy your Saturday. Take care. Bye.